Good morning, everyone. It's the morning after the night before Knockout Chaos. Firstly, Talkiano Sheikh built this accurately, didn't he? Very, very accurately. Because Knockout Chaos is what we got in the headline, at least. I said before this fight, I expected Joshua to win, and I expected him to look good doing it, which proved the case, which proved to be so. I didn't expect it that early. I predicted a points victory or a late stoppage. I expected, as I said before, but going back to this misnomer of old Joshua, new Joshua. Joshua is an evolved Joshua. So the old and the new is kind of correct, but people hark back to this. They want the old Joshua back. That's not going to happen. Joshua's evolved. He's now more calculated, now more evaluated. And this is what he did. And that being the case, I expected the points win or the late stoppage victory. Joshua's just a better fighter. He's superior in every area. Like I said in my prediction, other than maybe Ngannou's mentality because of the experiences he's been through, and maybe out-and-out one-punch knockout power. And I stand by that because Joshua, put him on a punch machine. Ngannou's a bigger, heavier man. He probably punches harder. But I also said Joshua is a concussive, destructive puncher, and that proved so. But there are levels. We talk about this a lot of the time. There are levels. And Joshua's levels of ability and attributes outweigh Ngannou's by a long way, by a large margin. And this proved so. Ngannou against Fury switched to the southpaw stance. And a lot of people said how this showed his level of skill. And to a degree it does. But listen, switching to the southpaw stance is only an advantage if you can do things well from the southpaw stance. Ngannou's quite rooted. He's not that mobile. I said against Fury, he's not a mobile heavyweight. Ngannou isn't. And when he switched southpaw in this, he didn't pose any problems from the southpaw stance because he didn't pose any problems from the orthodox stance. So switching southpaw and being rooted and not being mobile doesn't pose the opposition any more problems than from any other. You can stand in any stance you want. If you don't do a lot from that stance and you're not mobile and you don't use the southpaw stance to your advantage, it poses no threat. You're standing in a different stance, but that's all you're doing. You're essentially just standing in a different stance. So switching to the southpaw stance for Ngannou in this fight doesn't pose any problems because you're not doing anything different, or you're not showing any different looks from the southpaw stance. You're not doing anything essentially. The only minor successes Francis Ngannou had was that wide left hook. And he has successes with that because he's got such long arms. He can almost throw a lead sweeping left hook from the outside and it lands because his arms are so long. And they're the little successes that he had. But all that happened when Francis done it, all Joshua did was step back, step out of range, reevaluate, pose a different look, and come again. And I talked about this also in the preview, in the prediction, that feints are important. The use of the feint to make Ngannou think and add that little bit more confusion and that little bit more cognitive process to what Francis is doing will leave Francis at a disadvantage, and it did. And every feint Joshua gave and every look Joshua gave, Francis bought them. Every time Francis bought the feint and bought the different look. And this allowed Joshua to use his superior speed, accuracy and timing. And he timed Ngannou absolutely precisely. And every time he did, Francis found himself on the floor. People talk about Francis' chin and the fact that he gets hit with 4-ounce gloves. And he's got this great chin. He's not going to be hurt with an 8-ounce boxing glove. Well, listen, he was. This is the difference. This is the difference between a master box puncher, which I believe Joshua is, and a UFC MMA fighter. There's a vast gulf, and the gulf showed. All of those knockdowns, he did show a good chin on the first one, 100% so. The second knockdown was probably maybe equal or not as concussive of the first one. But the third one absolutely slept him. And the third one came almost as a counter, and it landed flush, and it was devastating. It slept Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou was asleep before he hit the floor, and he was down for some time. So it was as simple as that. Joshua's far better. He's technically far better. His timing is better. His IQ is better. The feints he sold him, Francis bought them every time. And Joshua just reeled him in, lured him in, and he was there whenever Joshua wanted him. superb, clinical, as it should have been. Joshua's just a far better fighter. This is what should have happened. And if Fury had been better prepared, and Fury was maybe a better fighter than what he is, and I believe he's flattered by his opponents he's faced, this is what Fury should have done to him. There was an uncomfortable look on Fury's face from ringside, wasn't there? You know, kind of an oh shit look. And who are the biggest losers out of this? Well, Francis Ngannou. Is Francis Ngannou a loser out of this? What's happened is what should have happened. But Francis Ngannou has made a shit ton of money, and he walks away from this with head held high. The biggest loser in all of this, really, especially when we talk about reputations and legacies, is Tyson Fury. Because the two common opponents, Otto Wallen and Tyson Fury, that posed Tyson Fury a shit ton of questions, Joshua swept away. And he swept away easily, without breaking a sweat. So, take from that what you will. But, you know, destructive, as it should have been, because Anthony Joshua is a far better fighter in every area other than maybe two. Outstanding. Moving on. Zhilei, Zhang, Joseph Parker. I picked Joseph Parker, and I said he'd win it down the stretch, possibly on points, you know, more than likely on points. That's what played out. But I said there was a caveat to that, and there was the jeopardy posed by Zhilei Zhang's power. They described it as a great term used in the commentary. They called it Zhang's hand of sleep. And it is that, isn't it? I must admit, every time he touched Parker with a shot, there was a sense that even if he touched Parker, he hurt Parker. And he dropped him twice. And credit to Parker, he overcome that and ran out a winner down the stretch, for me, quite comfortably. I made a video about, there was a lot of talk going around before this that people felt that Zhilei Zhang was the third best heavyweight in the world. Now, listen, I get a lot of shit in the comments. People don't agree with me. But I know my ability to view and assess a fighter. And when people talk about Zhang as the third best heavyweight on the planet, I said, I disagree. I think Zhang has been flattered by the wins over Joe Joyce and the win over Flip Hrgovic. Now, I won't go over this again because you can go back and watch the video. I didn't buy this. To me, Zhang doesn't look like an elite level heavyweight. And this, he showed that to be the case. Zhang showed the fighter that I believed he was. He's lazy, he's out of shape, and he's limited. He's got a massive punch and a massive dig, as you'd expect a 20-stone man to have. But he's got shortcomings. He's limited. And I said that before. And I've proved right. So listen, I know the difference between an elite fighter and a world level fighter. All right, you can come at me in the comments and all you want, but I know my assessments of a fighter. And Zhang got showed up for his shortcomings. Joseph Parker is an elite heavyweight, though I don't believe he beats elites. I don't believe he beats Usyk. I don't believe he beats Joshua. Joshua's already beat him, and I don't believe he'd beat Fury. All right, so you know, pretty obvious to me this was. But you know, a rematch is there, and do I want to see a rematch? Not really. Was that an entertaining fight? Not really. Joseph Parker, where does he go from here? Well, there's a rematch booked, isn't there? So will we get one? I don't believe Joseph, and again, I don't believe Joseph Parker beats the top three. But Zhilei Zhang, I believe, is even less capable of beating the top three. So I've kind of proven right. I did say in my build-up that I was leaning a little bit because I understood the jeopardy that Zhang faced with that punch, and I was kind of proved correct with that because the jeopardy was there, weren't it? Parker was on the floor twice, but Parker overcome that. I did expect Parker to pose more. I expected Parker to offer more movement and offer more looks to Zhang, to wear the tank dry even quicker than what he did. Because Joe Parker was quite static for the majority. He didn't offer a lot of movement in front of Zhang, and that's why there was still kind of jeopardy there towards the end, because Parker was in front of him for a lot of the time, and that was dangerous. And every time, like I say, every time he touched Parker, you felt there was effects on Parker. But nonetheless, Parker showed his mettle. We know he's got mettle. We know Parker's got guts. We know Parker's got balls. And he rolled it out, and he rolled it out, and he kept the faith. And he rolled it out, for me, a clear winner. So, well done to Joseph Parker, and he got the win as I hoped he would and predicted he would. And I think we've seen Zhang's level now. You know, I thought Zhang showed me his level against Hrgovic and against Joyce because of the levels of Hrgovic and Joyce. But yeah, well done to Joseph Parker. The sort of third the third fight from the headline was Nick Ball against Ray Vargas. I spoke to me and Joe Stunner spoke briefly on this beforehand, and we both agreed that if Nick Ball won this was a legitimate world title, and Nick Ball would then be a legitimate world champion. Now, again, I agree with Joe Stunner. Watching this round by round, for me, the first 6 fights, Nick Ball kind of lost and gave away in the sense that he was over-eager and showed a little bit of a lack of experience, and he was too eager to try and take Vargas's head off and get him out of there, meaning that a lot of Ball's attacks in those first 6 rounds, he didn't work his way and he didn't engineer openings. He just launched attacks from too far out through a big looping overhand right and didn't set Vargas up in any way. He didn't draw Vargas in any way. He just launched attacks from the outside with no thought and no engineering, if you like. And Vargas dealt with him quite easily. Vargas used his attributes really well. His longer length and his greater height, and he used that to defend those attacks quite comfortably. When we got into the 6th, and a lot of people talk about Nick Ball, manhandling Vargas, throwing it to the floor and all that sort of stuff. Firstly, Vargas went to the floor very easily, all right? And secondly, in the words of Ricky Hatton, it's not a tickling contest. You will do everything in that fight that you can get away with the referee to gain every advantage and gain every use every bit of your attributes that you can. You'll use any tactic you can get away with, essentially. And this is what Nick Ball was doing. And the referee let him do it, so he's got to do it. Like I said, as Ricky Hatton said, it's not a tickling contest. This is a fight, and you'll do everything you can that the referee is going to let you get away with to win that fight. So have I got a problem with that? No. Would I have a problem with that if it was the other way around? No. I understand it's a fight. Okay? But moving into the second half of the fight, Nick Ball now elected to punch with or after Vargas. And this left Vargas open. This left the openings for Ball's punches to get home. And he scored the knockdowns. For me, it was a shutout in the second half of the fight. And there's a rematch clause. In a rematch, I'd expect Nick Ball to go away and view the first 6 rounds of this fight and look at them and say, I was too overeager. I was forcing it too much. I was not letting the openings come. I was trying to force openings that weren't there. And in the second half of the fight, when he punched with Vargas or punched after Vargas, he had success and his punches found the target. So, have I got a problem with the result? No, not really. Not really. If he'd have given it to Ball, I'd have been happy and I wouldn't complain. But have I got a complaint with a draw? No, because I believe that Nick Ball didn't work his openings in enough in the first 6 rounds to win any of those rounds or win them convincingly. So have I got a problem? No. Do I think Nick Ball has arrived on the world stage? Yes. Have I proved his ability to operate at the elite level? Yes, I do. I believe he does, and I believe he goes on this, and I believe the experience of this fight, he'll be a different fighter in this fight second time around, and I believe he'll win. I believe he'll win conclusively second time around. So, I believe that was a decent result for Nick Ball, and I believe it was the correct decision. And I believe it was a great learning process, and I believe that Nick Ball will be a better fighter after this. When he goes back and watches this and sees that I was a bit crude in the first 6 rounds, I didn't think and I didn't open Vargas up open him up in any way, and I could have done that better and more successfully in the way that he did in the last 6 rounds of that fight. So overall, yeah, fair decision, and I was happy for Nick Ball, and I've no doubt Nick Ball will go on from this. You guys know I've said it many times before. I'm a big Nick Ball fan, but I have to look objectively. And objectively, he how do I put this? Not gave the first 6 rounds away, but I believe he gave them away in the sense that he could have won those rounds more convincingly and in a better engineered manner that would have led to him winning those rounds more obviously and more conclusively. So have I got a problem with the result? No. Fair result, but still a good performance by Nick Ball and a great learning experience. And I believe he'll go on. And because of this experience, he'll engineer the way he goes about winning rounds differently in the way he did. And in the way he kind of learned from the first 6 rounds, and he settled down to engineer openings and set up scoring punches better than he did in the first 6 rounds. So, yeah, well done to Nick Ball. Great learning experience. Vargas a tough guy, and he used his attributes well in the first 6 rounds, but Nick Ball shut out for the second 6 rounds, and I expect him to go on. So, yeah, good performance and good learning performance, which he'll go on, I believe he'll learn from, and he'll be a far better fighter going forward for it when he sits down and re-watches this. So overall, very good Nick Ball. Parker, Zhang fight, quite dull. Zhang, I believe, was seeing his level, which I believe was there anyway, which a lot of people ran away and thought Zhang was this danger man and the third best heavyweight in the world. Not for me. Not for me. That's what I thought, and this confirmed it for me. And Anthony Joshua, destructive. Joshua is technically superb. He really is. Are there any questions left over Joshua? Yeah, I suppose there are questions over Joshua's ability to kind of take a punch and recover from a good punch. But Joshua now being the more measured fighter, I don't believe we're going to see him in those positions. Joshua's not going to put himself in those positions anymore. He's calculated and he's measured. And even though this was an early stoppage and an early destruction, very early I think Joshua saw that the opportunities were there. And I believe his attacks in this were measured as well. And like I said, every time Joshua got hit with that sweeping left hook, he went back, reset and evaluated. Sold Ngannou a feint, sold him a look, used speed, accuracy and timing, and delivered absolutely concussive, destructive power. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. I'll see you all soon. Hope you all enjoyed.